Brilliant. So that's us live. Hello and welcome. So this is Cognitive Sports Therapies, Time to Talk. And this week I am excited to have Michelle with me, who is known on social media as the runner's therapist. Do you still do the Psychology to Succeed as well, or have you completely gone? Yeah, Psychology to Succeed as well. And we are going to talk a little bit about mindset, I think, today. Mental Health Awareness Week is next week, and the theme this year is on loneliness. And I was keen to kind of have some sessions running through May on, I guess, ways to combat loneliness. Again, I do a bit of research before I kind of do these topics, and the numbers are massive. It's nearly 50% of us experience loneliness at some point. And we know that loneliness is only partly to do with where we're sitting. So, we think maybe if we're on our own, then we're more likely to be lonely. But actually, we can feel lonely even when we have family, when we have friends, when we have other people around us. And I think that's the thing that I thought Michelle would be really good at talking to us a little bit about. Do you want to, we've connected over social media, I guess, over a shared passion of running and mental health, but do you want to tell us a little bit more about you and what you do?
Of course, yeah. So hello everybody, and thank you Claire for inviting me today. So I am a cognitive behavior therapist as well as an EMDR therapist, so acronyms that you may have heard of, two particular key types of therapy, as well as a certified mindset coach. So I kind of run two clinics really. So Psychology to Succeed is my sort of general mental health clinic. So very much sort of therapy, always incorporating some of the mindset coaching. I think they complement each other very, very well. And then alongside that, as a passionate runner, I set up the runner's therapist, particularly for, I think, just being very aware that a lot of runners run for their mental well-being.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. Running is absolutely great for that. But it is also used sometimes for people as a way to cope with their mental health problems. And that's, again, really, really great. But I guess my passion for the running community is I've got skills to be able to treat those underlying mental health problems so that, people can get the enhancing benefits out of running rather than it just needing to be a way to cope. Yeah. So again, incorporating the mindset coaching and the therapy to treat those mental health problems for runners specifically.
Yeah. I guess it's moving away from the running being a little bit like a sticking plaster that kind of goes on and just fixes it for that day and for that moment, but then actually doesn't necessarily treat what's going on in the background. So you're able to go a little bit deeper with that, aren't you?
Absolutely. And then when you go out for the run, you get the extra rather than the sticking plaster.
Yeah. So I was really keen for us to maybe have a bit of a chat specifically, I guess, about the mindset coaching, because I kind of was exploring that thought myself, to do with it being partly our mindset that can make us feel disconnected from others and from the world, and that therefore is the thing that then ends up making us feel very alone. And I always like these things. They're only 15 minutes long, so they're little nuggets for people, but I like them to have a positive message and things that people can take away. I wasn't sure if there's, even just explain to me what you do in a mindset coaching session, so I can get my head around that. And then
So I guess the thing to think about is mindset is like, it's like the glasses that you put on when you wake up in the morning. It's the lens through which you see the world. It's how we see ourselves, other people, the world, things that are important to us, even the senses that are dominant. Some of us are really visual people, some of us are feeling people, and so that's the mindset. And I think, the word mindset, I just have a slight niggle with, because the word set makes it sound really fixed. And actually we can make changes to those glasses, because sometimes those glasses are not serving us very well.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about sort of mindset coaching, it's really finding out, okay, where do you want to get to? People often have a vision, where they want to get to. And then we're looking at, okay, what is keeping you here right now? You're A, you want to be a B. What is keeping you here? So really defining those goals. And then we're looking at actually what is it in that mindset that is maintaining that. And often it's kind of our beliefs, maybe about ourselves, maybe certain thinking styles, certain behavioral styles, maybe habits, things like that. Or even, we're just a bit disconnected from what matters to us, our values, the stuff that actually we want to be out there doing, like connecting to people. Relationships is often a really key value that we're disconnected from, and that can then drive the experience of loneliness. So it's really kind of finding out where people want to get to, and what's the block in the mindset, and then using the tools to make those changes. The mindset is not set, and seeing if we can move things forward.
And what's your what do you say to people who kind of know this on a rational level? So I work with a lot of people who they do the reading, and they know that if they practice gratitude, and if they practice kind of positive thinking, and they try and do their mantras, and they do and all of this stuff, but it all sort of feels a bit superficial. Where do you go with that? So people know what they should be doing, but it doesn't sink to a sort of deeper level for them. Is there any tips for that?
I often think of that as what I call a head-heart lag.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure you've heard that term, we know it up here, and, that might be the same as, we know, most people are really sound and really nice, and, we know we want to get out there and connect with them, but in our bodies, in our hearts, we really, really anxious about that, and there's a block there. We just can't do it, even though we know we want to. In the same way, we know we've got all these great strategies that we can read about and learn, but actually it's just not shifting something inside. Now, for me, that's where I start to kind of think about sort of the therapy side of things, and finding out what is that block. There's something in the system. It's often like, if you like, I often think of it like a bit like old software that still keeps playing now, even though it's not serving us very well. And what we need to do is kind of update that old software so we get an alignment between the head and the heart. So, the body isn't pulling us back, or is actually benefiting from the strategies that we're using up here. Does that make sense?
It does. So there is that kind of need to really look at the why a bit more, isn't it? It's not just about the how, I guess. It's about the why something, as you say, isn't quite clicking or isn't quite working. And as you say, then there's that space to explore that with someone like yourself is really, really useful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think there's a word, obviously I think I was trying to think about this last night, about the bigger picture of mental health awareness is also to do with just having these conversations and having mental health kind of discussed a bit more openly, isn't it? And I guess maybe that's a statement that comes from this, is that actually to see a therapist and work with someone like yourself or our team is not a weakness, and in fact it can be seen as something that is a strength, to be able to kind of put yourself out there and kind of explore these things, and actually, if people have been wondering about therapy, then maybe trying it is worth doing. I thought you'd be a useful person because you do CBT as well, and because you do EMDR, that you might help us understand a little bit about those kind of therapies as well.
And I think, absolutely. Therapy, I think, is becoming a little bit more acceptable, something we're more able to talk about, certainly, than it used to be, which is wonderful. The stigma is changing around mental health, which is absolutely the way it should be. We should be able to talk about it like we talk about our physical health. But we're not quite there yet. And you're right, therapy is a really brave move. It's a great thing. We all have stuff, and that's okay. That's part of being human. And if we can find a way to help with that, then, why not make things better? And I think sometimes we still have very old images of what therapy looks like, lying down on the couch, talking for years, having your dreams analysed and so forth. And it's just not like that. So, there are modalities that do that, and they, serve some people very well. But the typical therapies that we see, CBT, a lot of people would have heard of cognitive behaviour therapy. It's the go-to for the NHS because it's got a very good evidence base. And then EMDR is eye movement desensitization reprocessing therapy. You don't need to remember that. But again, a very nicely evidence-based treatment. And the thing is, they're both very much short-term therapies looking to make lasting change.
And short term, let's define this even more for people. So what do you mean? What's a typical number of sessions that someone would come to you for CBT or EMDR?
I would say, you're looking at, between maybe 6 to 20.
Okay.
For some more complex problems, it might be longer, but we're not talking about being in therapy for years and years. Ultimately, my job is to get people to the place where they don't need me anymore.
Yeah.
I want them to be out there without needing me. So they want to look really present focused at making the changes, that heart lag, where things are blocked.
Yeah.
Why is that? Let's understand why. Let's look at the thinking patterns, the behavioral patterns. That's very much CBT.
Yeah.
Making some changes there, shifting the thinking patterns with that understanding of why. And then EMDR looks much more at the genesis. So why did that software that keeps showing up and keeps playing start in the first place? So it's very much a trauma therapy, but actually used for lots and lots of experiences that are ruling the show, keeping us maybe anxious, keeping us maybe depressed, keeping us from engaging with people, a bit too nervous, and maybe not feeling great about ourselves. And it's about updating that software. So EMDR, if you like, goes back into the past to make a change to now, updating that software. CBT understands the past, but looks at making changes to now in the thoughts and the behaviors. So both present focus, both about making change. And in the same way that mindset coaching is about making that future focused change to what we're seeing in the world, seeing in ourselves now.
And the EMDR, it is actually moving your eyes at the same time, isn't it? There's a thing about moving your eyes across that's fascinating, isn't it? So your eyes
really
move horizontally across the midline?
Across typically, and it doesn't have to be eye movement. So yes, it's in the title, but we now know that audio going from one side to the other, even tapping, can it is equally as good, and we can do it online, which is wonderful. We've all adapted, haven't we, to being online now, and EMDR is no different. Really what we're doing, it's called bilateral stimulation. So bilateral, one side then the other stimulation, something we're making the brain do a job, i.e. move the eyes or listen to the audio. So it's doing something extra, as well as think about the maybe the distressing memory that's causing the problem. And because we're making it do an extra job, it means that the brain doesn't get as overwhelmed by it. So normally, if we're not doing anything else, we can get terribly overwhelmed, and that keeps that old pattern repeating itself, keeps that trauma going. And by making it do something else, and the guidance from a therapist, there's sort of certain things that we say and make moves, we actually stimulate that software update, if you like, so that the brain sort of moves forward and naturally settles in the way that it would normally naturally settle with any other event.
It's really interesting because I was reading something just last night, and you maybe know that I do some of my sessions with patients walking or running with them, and there was this therapist who was also running with patients in California actually, and was likening what's happening in that to what happens in EMDR because of that bilateral movement, which is an additional reason why maybe that kind of therapy kind of actually works for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And why a lot of runners will say, I go out of the door, put my trainers on, I'm really stressed, and I come home and I've solved the problem and I feel fine.
Yeah.
You're doing something whilst you're thinking. It's really beneficial.
And for the person who's a wee bit worried about having to relive trauma in those sorts of sessions, what would you say?
It's all about taking it at that person's timing. So, you're alongside a therapist, you're always 1 foot in the present. So you're never fully in the past, and you're there with the therapist guiding you. And there's lots of preparation that we do prior to working on any memory. We can't avoid going there because that's an important part of the therapy, but it's done in the safest way possible, always keeping 1 foot in the present alongside the therapist being there. So if you are worried, it's about finding a therapist that you feel you can connect with, you feel safe with.
Safe, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the key thing.
Yeah. I often say that to people, don't stick with someone if you're not feeling comfortable with them. Like the therapist can
100%.
handle that. Just, you know, make sure it's the right mix of personalities as much as
all
we
about
don't
the
all get on with
relationship.
people, do we? So why would we all get on with the same therapist, even if they're the most experienced or whatever? And you use these techniques then with people who are runners. It's the same kind of, it's all the principles are the same.
Absolutely. So the runner therapist is very much about treating the mental health problem, and we incorporate running and think about kind of how we can get that to enhance the therapy and also then later benefit the running. But absolutely, you know, it's, you know, I have my toolbox, if you like, and if that person needs those therapy tools, absolutely we'll bring them out and use them.
Brilliant. And I guess that's 15 minutes gone. I told you it was going to go really fast. I always think it's worth maybe coming back another session. I'll bring you back again. We can have more of a conversation.
Very happy to.
Would you have, again, just circling back to the Mental Health Awareness Week, kind of, and loneliness and mindset, are there any resources that you would point anybody to that might want to read a bit more about mindset coaching or anything else that you're kind of...
So yeah, you know, I think there's lots and lots of things out there. I mean, I was going to I've got a runner's success journal, which is all
you do. It's really good. Yeah, I've got it.
And so we incorporate gratitude into that, and actually using a particular technique to shift into positive thinking whilst noticing the blocks and sort of becoming aware of those, which is incredibly powerful. I think I was thinking from the cognitive behavior therapy point of view. I don't know if you know CCI, the clinical center, the Center for Clinical Intervention.
Yeah.
It's got some wonderful workbooks that people can just work through themselves.
Brilliant.
Which are absolutely fantastic. I often point people in that direction. Big list of different issues that you can look at, so something for everybody.
Lovely. And how do we get hold of because I think I got it through your website once. I had it a while ago. How would someone get hold of yours?
The book, that's on Amazon, so just pop on Amazon, Runner Success Journal, or you can go to my website and it's linked in there. So the runnerstherapist.co.uk is in there. So
brilliant.
But there are loads of fantastic mindset resources out there as well.
Super. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on. As I say, maybe we'll do it again another time. But
lovely too. Yeah, very welcome.
I always say to people, if they've got any questions afterwards, I'm always happy to be contacted and I can pass them on to Michelle.
More than happy to.
If there's any questions you've got, particularly around those things like the different types of therapies and what might be the right way to go from the point of view of therapy, because I think I often get asked that and there's a bit of confusion. I think it's just a lot of letters that don't necessarily...
it's lots of letters, isn't it? And it's really confusing. The systems are quite confusing. So any questions, that's not a problem. Just ping them over. I'm happy to help.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Michelle. And see you. Bye-bye. Bye.